My name is Joni. We're going to be doing the Clubhouse Online calendar webinar today. So today's just the website. Everything is going to be built on the website for the calendar. You're going to manage it. You're going to pull reports. Everything is on the website. Some clubs might be using what's called activity management, but specifically I'm referring to the events module. Anyone on the call using activity management events specifically and using it to create registration events, this is not the webinar that you should be on, because we actually do something called an integrated events training, which is a one-on-one training. So it's only myself and your club. Now, there's no harm for you to stick around and learn how the online calendar works if you want, if you already carved out some time to join me today, because a lot of the steps are the same. The only thing is, if you are going to be using Jonas Activity Management Event to create registration events, there's going to be some steps that you have to unlearn. If anybody is using Jonas Activity Management Events, you may want to double check with your coordinator and see if this is something that you wanted or something that is a question that we need to address for you. This is our objective today. There are three main things that you're going to be able to learn how to do when we are done, or should be able to. One, we're going to create and manage your calendar events from start to finish. We're going to show you how your members are going to be using it. Members can register for the event and they can add guests to the events. It's not designed for the guests to register themselves. A member can bring one if you set up your event to allow guests. The calendar also allows you, for popular events, to create what we call a waitlist feature. So instead of grabbing a separate piece of paper or spreadsheet to maintain people's names, if your event fills up really quickly, like a Mother's Day event or something, we can do the waitlist feature right in this calendar itself. Now, to break down the information, here's our agenda. I'm going to give you an overview of the calendar. We're going to create the events. We're going to show you how to manage them. We're going to show you things on an admin view, because the admin view is slightly different. If you have any members that aren't able to register on their own, the staff can actually log in and assist with the registration. As mentioned, the waitlist option. There is a public calendar if you ever wanted to use this, and the public can only view the events. The public would never have the capability of registering. It's actually the same calendar. You actually pick and choose from your member events which ones you want to potentially make viewable by the general public. So that's an option. You don't have to have the public calendar. Buddies and groups is an option that helps make the booking experience quicker for your members. I'll show you how to set that up. And my bookings. So those are the different things that we'll be covering today. May not necessarily be in this order, but we will definitely cover all of this. The calendar has the following features. There is month view. There's actually a week view and a list view. There are filters. So if there are categories that you separate your events into, your members can easily change the filters to find something of their interests. When you create an event, there are two ways you can set them up. Information only, meaning you're just informing them of something, and a registration event where they can actually click on a register button and sign up on their own without speaking with a staff member. When you set up your events, you also have two methods. You can have named registrants, meaning you have to have a name for everyone that is attending. You can also set up a quick registration where all you need is the head count. So maybe one person is bringing a family of 4 to the event. All you need is the main or one person's name. You have the capability of adding additional questions. So if you wanted to ask entree choices or a simple question during the registration process, you can tack on additional questions. A confirmation email will be sent for the registration. They get the confirmation as well when they edit and cancel a booking. And of course, we have a My Bookings tab where your members can easily see any bookings that they have coming up, not just for our event calendar, but if you happen to have any online booking modules within our Clubhouse Online website, they can see them all in one spot. So for example, courts, tea times, you can see them all in the My Bookings area. This is just the public side. I'm going to show you very quickly. And as you can see, I've not yet logged in. So what that means is somebody stumbled across your websites from the World Wide Web and they found it. I have a calendar option. This is the public calendar. And like I mentioned, it's one and the same calendar. It's just how we display things. So on the calendar, you can see there's one tab at the very top. So what I'm going to do now is a quick overview of what the calendar looks like, because whatever we see here actually stems over to the member view and also the administrator view as well. Starting at the top here, you can see there's a capability of searching for an event name. Before I type something in there, I want you to notice over here, I have the month, the week, and the list view. I'm currently in the month view and it starts on a Sunday showing the 7 columns for the days of the week. And you can see the names of the events are kind of cut off here because of the month view. If your member hovers over, they can see the full name of the event. I'm named by event so that's easier to identify the type of event that I created. So you probably wouldn't create the names the same way I have. And you can see there's color circle in front of the name. This is an opportunity for you to color coordinate your activities based on the category that you have. So let's go to the search. If I wanted to find something that had the word dining in the name of my event, notice everything else disappeared except for my Thursday. This is my weekly social dining. If I wanted to remove that, I can hit the X or zero out this field, and I can also filter. Filter had lots of different things for me to filter from. I can search for a location. Maybe I like to find things that are happening in a particular room at the clubhouse. I can choose to see the time of the event that's going to take place. And notice it says month view only in brackets. Once we go into the other views, the time will always display without having to do anything in the filter. You can choose the categories as I was mentioning, and this is where you can color coordinate them if you wish. That way it's easier for your members to spot it on the calendar itself. You can choose all your categories or you can choose whatever items you're interested in, and that's how they can change it up. Did they want to see events that are particular gender? Maybe you have a female fitness class, then all the other events will disappear, or are you allowed to bring a guest, yes or no? Once they change up the filters, and they can always reset it, or they can hit filter at the top and it'll close out the parameters. So that is the month view. You have the arrow to go further out to another month. You can print what they see on screen here. Maybe they wanted a printout of what it looks like. They've gone too far, they can come back to the current month. The week view does have the capability of showing everything that's coming up in just that particular week. Now they can see the start time and the end time of the event and the full name of the event without having to hover over it. Same thing, you have the arrows to go forward in time or back. They can print or come back to the current week. And then finally, we have the list view. This is going to show your events chronologically. First of the month at the very top and the 31st at the bottom. So if anybody has our mobile app, not necessarily for the public, but once your members logged in on the mobile app, it will always display the list view. Because if you think about it, your phone isn't wide enough to nicely display 7 columns on the screen. It'd be very hard to read. So if you have the mobile app and logged in as a member, they're always going to see the list view of things. Now the list view has the most amount of information. Not only does it now have the start and end time, full name, it actually lists the location of where that event is going to take place as well. You can even have multiple locations. You have the grand hall and patio that you see here. So that way it will list multiple locations if you had a very big event. Now you haven't seen the event yet, so let's go back up to the very top because I'm going to go to the month view. And we're going to be using my social dining today for most of the demonstration. So what does the event look like? Your member can click on the event. And at this point on the left-hand side, it gives you the details, the date, the time, location. And on the right-hand side is where I call making it look pretty. This is where you have your event details, the name, pictures if you wanted to add any special notes. So for training purposes, I can cap how many people in a family when you're booking to have. So I said 4. You can add hyperlinks. So if you have a better poster or a menu, you can link it to a PDF so they can easily see the details. And of course, an email and phone number is always good to put on the information details for your activity. But I've not logged in. So there's no capability for your general public to actually register for the event. And that's where the contact information will come in handy so they can reach out if they are interested and you allow it. So a lot of the information I just told you is going to stem over to the member view. So I'm going to be jumping between different browsers today. So this was the public facing. I'm now going over to this browser, and I've logged in as my good friend Danny Lewis. Once you're logged in, what usually happens for your members is by default, you will land on what we call the Member Central page. Member Central page is a good area for you to let your members know of anything new or changes that are happening on the site, because after that, they can go anywhere on your website. So we usually land them here first. What I wanted to show you is I have something called a upcoming events widget. So you may or may not have this set up, and it can look a little different depending on what version of the website you have with us. And it allows you, if you want, to showcase upcoming events quick and easily in this box. So I've chosen to show 3 things at a time, and I've got more page numbers because I think I was showing 30 days out. So I can go to number 2 or 3 to see the next set of events that are coming up. I can easily click View All Events, and it'll take me to the calendar as well. And then up at top, usually clubs will have like a Member Central page with a drop down to get to calendar. You can have different areas to navigate to it, but once you select calendar, it's going to look the same as the general public, but you've got a few extra tabs now. So let me zoom in a touch more. We also have My Bookings, Manage Buddies, and Help. And we've got a few extra things now. If anybody noticed on my calendar, I've got a lot more events, because remember, you picked and chose what you wanted the general public to see. You've got the same name search at the top. You can still filter, but now when you filter, there's booking types. So if you have extra modules with this, I don't in this particular one, but imagine you had tea times, courts, or dining. So if your member actually had a dining reservation, then they could select dining. They would easily see it on this calendar for anything they've booked already. You've got the legend. So if anybody's registered for an event, you'll see a little green check mark right beside the little color dot. If an event is full, you got the red circle with the strike through, meaning it's full and there's no wait list for it. But you see the clock icon here. My winemaking class is popular, so I always have a wait list going on for that, and it's already full for last week. What does it look like when you click on the event itself now? The difference is 2 things as a member. One, on the left-hand side, I have a Others Attending option. This is a feature you can turn on or off when you are creating your event. Do you actually want your members to be able to see the names of their friends that are already signed up? If you like it, you can keep that feature. If you don't, when you create the event, you can turn it off. Comes in handy instead of your members calling and say, do you know if my best friend Bob already signed up? You don't have to do that anymore because I could see that Bob is already signed up. The other thing that's different, the top right now is I have the register button. And when they click on that, that's when they could go through the registration process. I just want to pause for a quick second. I can jump into more the creation process, or I can keep going so you guys can actually see all the member features and what everything looks like. If you want me to keep going, type in 1. Or if you want me to switch gears and teach you how to actually create it, type 2. We can start jumping into the admin side of things. So let's start off over here. When you log in as administrator, you can see it says Joni at the top because I'm with my admin account. I also get brought to the Member Central page like your members do. So if I click in here, I can select the calendar, and everything is actually a little different. So I just want to show you one key thing is the tabs across the top are now saying Manage Events, Create Event, and Help. When I was with Danny Lewis, let me just switch over quickly. It says My Bookings, Manage Buddies, and Help. So you do have a different perspective. So let's back up to my account. Now, how you're going to manage is you see it right there in Create Event. Personally, whenever you're managing anything on your website, I'd like you to click on your name and choose Switch to Club Central, because that's how you access everything on the back end of the website. So let's open the link in a new tab, and that way I can easily switch between the two. Dashboard is where you're going to land on. This is where you're going to find your application squares, which are these shortcuts. The one I like you to write down for me is Event management. If for any reason your shortcut is not set up as a square here on your dashboard, click on the planet in the top left-hand corner. It's called Open Application List. And at this point, you're going to click on it, and under Modules is where you should be able to find Event Management. Once you go into Event Management, you'll see on the left-hand side. So let me zoom out for a second. That's what the page actually looks like. And Manage Events is where it defaults you to. We're going to cover everything here today up to cancellation policies. The configuration we do not do because this is a group webinar. This is covered in your individual one-on-one training sessions usually, so that you can set up your defaults in the configuration area. I'm not going to do the manage events right now. We're going to click on the second option, which is create event. I'm going to zoom in a touch. When you create your first event, you actually have to set up a few things on the left-hand side here. What I mean by that is, if you go to the category area in your account, it will be empty if this is the first time that you've ever been in here. Notice if I try to type in here right now, typing, nothing happened. So the categories have to be first set up on the left-hand side here. Same goes for location. If you have a new room that you weren't holding events in before and you wanted to use it, I cannot add it in here. So honestly, if it's your first time ever logging into the Clubhouse Online into the calendar area, you need to set up the items on the left first. So let's go there. Categories, super easy to create. All you have to do is figure out what it is that you're going to hold events for. So some examples here, if these apply to your club, feel free to jot them down. Start by hitting the new category button at the top. At this point, you're going to name your category. I'm running out of ideas, so I'm going to use dining again, but I'm going to tack on the number 2. So usually you wouldn't double them up the way I have. The second thing is decide, do you want a little circle color to identify your dining 2 events? If you do, you click on the color drop down and you can only choose from the colors here. You can't get fancy with the special hex code or anything, just from these colors you see here. You simply choose a color you want to use. If you chose the wrong one, you can always, replace it. And if you don't want a color, just choose white or the checkerboard, which is basically no color. Then we have a default. If anybody noticed earlier, when I chose create event, dining with the orange color was already pre-selected because I defaulted it. That means it's a popular event that I create at the club very often. So you can default one, you can default a couple of things that you use often, but you don't have to. I'm going to jump to the action column next. Action, you notice a lot of these say in use, and only my golf 2 and dining 2, which I'm in the process of setting up with you, have the X. In use means at some point in the past, I've actually used that category and saved and created an actual event. Once it's in use, I cannot delete it. Because I have created golf 2, that was from a previous webinar, I didn't use it, and I don't need it anymore. I can hit the X to get rid of golf 2. So that's what the action column allows you to do. What is disable then? Maybe you created a category, you created events some time ago, but you're not creating any more events now. For example, my social dining. You're not doing that anymore. Because I can't delete it, you can disable it. What disable does is it now prevents it from showing up when you are doing 2 things. One, when you create an event, it's not going to list it in the drop-down for social dining. And 2, when I go into Danny Lewis here, when I do my filtering, it's not going to list social dining in the filter. So that way it doesn't mislead your members thinking, oh, I have social dining activities that I can actually participate in. So that's what the disable actually does. Or maybe you have an area that is under renovation, my squash courts maybe. So I can always go ahead and disable it and save at the top so that they don't see it in the search. Once the renovations are done in the squash courts, I can always come back and uncheck it. The most important button though is save. If I don't save, this dining 2 will not show up when I go to create event. You don't have to create all of your categories at once. You can start off with one and just keep adding more as you go along. Locations on the left is where we're going to go next. And it's very similar to categories, just no color choice. So same idea, you're going to think of all the different rooms at the clubhouse that you potentially hold your events. You're going to hit new location. I'm going to go ahead and put in my north room. So once I put in my north room, notice there's no color choice. I can default it if it's where it takes place very often in use, or I can delete a room, or I can disable if it's under renovation. On purpose, I'm not going to save it because sometimes you're in a hurry. You say, oh, I need to add something. But if you forget to save, it's not going to show up in the Create Event dropdown. So that is locations. Now remember in the beginning, I said there were 2 ways to set up your events. We have what's called an information only event, and we also have a registration event. I assume most people on the call today want to do registration events. So you do need to set up what's called registrant categories in order for your members to sign up for something. So let's go in there. Let me show you something on the Danny Lewis account, because then that might help explain what I'm about to do. So I'm going to jump back over here for a second to our weekly social, and we're going to register. So this is what we're about to set up, because this is where I stopped and switched to the admin side. So Danny Lewis is logged in. By default, he is the first registrant, and these are the registrant categories that we're just about to do. So what is the registrant category? It could be set up in 2 ways. It could be set up on things that you create. So for this particular event, there's 3 ways they could have signed up: the dinner and event portion, the dinner only, or the event only. If your event was just one thing, like general admission or something, you don't have to put 3 things in here. You can just have one and it's already pre-selected for them. The other way they can set up is by age. So you could have had, for example, adult, child, and senior. And you actually define the age groups of what they are registering for. So that's what the registrant category is. Let's go back to the admin side so you can see what we are going to do. So over here, you can see up at the very top is the age applied categories. And over here underneath are the member selected. Let me zoom in a touch for everybody. Age applied categories. By default, if you're coming in here for the very first time, you would only see 2 things. You would see adult and you would see child. Now, if you needed to split out senior or add another age group, what you're going to do is hit the new category button up at the very top. When you do so, it opens up the new category 1 for you. So in this case, I'm going to add a youth, maybe teenager, because I'm running out of age categories here. So youth, what is the minimum age? Where does it start? You take the age group before it, so that would be a child. Take the max age 12 and plus 1. So the youth is going to start at 13, and where does it end? So every club's probably going to be different for this definition. Maybe yours ends at 17, maybe it's 18. So you set what the max age is going to be for your youth and the green and white check mark, and that saves that category for you. I'm going to delete my youth so I can use it for future trainings. So to do that, I'm just going to hover over and hit the X. Usually I find clubs 80% of the time don't go by age. They usually use member selected categories, which is just words. So as you can see, I have my dinner and event only that you saw earlier with Danny Lewis. So new category at the very bottom. So instead of being very specific on the age, and you still want adult and child to be signed up in, you can actually come in here and start typing adult. When I try to save adult with the green and white check mark, it says it already exists. It's not because it's in this registration category area, it's because the word adult is up here already. So that's where you can be a little creative. You can say maybe regular versus junior or senior or general. So this is where you would have to come down here and figure out what you want to use as the registration option. If you don't want it, you can just hit this line and then get rid of it. The green and white check mark is your save button. There is no additional save button on this screen. Remember, you don't have to set them all up at once. You can always add more as you go along. Cancellation policies is the last thing I'm going to show you, and I promise we will create an event. Cancellation policies are optional. It's really just to fill in the blanks, and we're just informing your members that there is a cancellation policy. There are no fees that are actually processed when they book online. Even if there was a charge for an activity, we just inform them of the cost, but we're not asking for credit card or any sort of payment. Payment is done at the club on the day of the event or however you normally process it manually in your point of sale system. You can create as many cancellation policies as you want. You can see the name of it, the end date, the window. You can edit and change the policy, and you can see if it's ever used or if you just created a couple, but we never ended up using it. Because once you create it, it could be applied to different events as well. So instead of deciphering what I have here, we're going to create a new policy up at the very top. You're going to name it. When you name it, I'm just going to use today's date so that we can easily see that together. So August 12th, and let's say you had a 24-hour policy. All you're doing is checking these boxes, cancellation end date. Look at the very bottom, the preview box. What it does now, it says registrations can be canceled until, let's fill in the blank, 1 day before the event at a certain time. And that's all you're doing. That will show up on the screen. And what will happen is members go into their My Bookings. This will basically disable the cancel button a day before. If you don't set up a cancellation policy, that means they can still cancel up until the day of. Now, what does the other one do? So let's uncheck this first one here, the end date, and do the cancellation window. This one is very similar. You're just filling in the blanks. I can't change any of the other words. So what you're going to do is 1 day at a certain time, and maybe you're going to charge them some sort of administrative fee of $25. So you're just letting them know that this will happen. The other choice is the percentage. If you had a registration fee to begin with, maybe you're just charging them a percentage. So it's just text, and it determines when the cancel button will disappear when they are editing or viewing their bookings. So let's just do this. We said 24 hours at 7 a.m. and save. So there is the August 12th. We haven't used it yet, and I can apply it to any event when I create it. It could be a golfing event, a dining, a social. I can use this exact same August 12th if it is the same policy. But if you don't have any, you can skip the cancellation policy area altogether. We are now ready to go create our event. So usually when you're creating your event, what I usually recommend you do is probably grab your poster or your event details, because all you're doing here is literally filling in the blanks. Let's just zoom back out and start off with the name of the event. Summer fun event. Now type it properly, because whatever you type here is going to show up on the calendar. Then we're going to choose our categories. So you can see there's our dining 2 that we created together. Remember, you can choose multiple categories because maybe dining is also linked to social. That's why your members relate to that activity. And you can see the colors we set up are the only colors that you can choose from. I cannot make this summer fun event blue because it wasn't preset in the categories. So I can choose from those 3 preset colors or no color. So let's make it pink. Location, remember on purpose, I did not save the North Room. So make sure after you create your categories or locations to hit that save button. And you can also choose multiple rooms if it was a very big event. The next part is the description box where you make it look pretty. You click in this box and it opens up your content editor. You got your bold, your italics, you've got your hyperlink, and you got this film strip icon, which is how you insert pictures using this editor. So all I would suggest you do here is at least put in your title. You could insert text, images, or links. I usually suggest you put in a phone number, and it's always nice to include an email address. So I'm not going to be showing you how to create hyperlinks and insert the images in detail here. We do have another webinar called the Content Blocks that goes through that in greater detail. The only thing I do want to remind you is if you do insert a picture, put your cursor where you want it to go and click this film strip icon. In the media library is where you want to make sure in this tab here, because sometimes it doesn't default there, you can start searching through all the pictures that you've already saved. And this is a split screen. So these are pictures I've already uploaded. If the picture you want is still on your computer, then click on the upload button to find it. When you click on your picture, it will be selected. And what I wanted you to make a note of is the dimension. I don't want you to upload anything wider than 500 pixels for the calendar pictures. The reason why is, let me go back to Danny Lewis here for a second. Anytime you have a picture, it doesn't span the entire width of your screen. It's always going to be in this second column here. And remember, you're going to have people using the desktop and possibly the mobile app. So you want the image to be easily seen without them having to scroll left and right to see the picture entirely. So 500 pixels wide would be my recommended max. How tall it is, that's okay because it's pretty easy to scroll up and down when you're on your phone. So that's the only thing I really wanted to point out when you're inserting a picture and save and close. You can hit the close button down here, and now it's all in the description box. If you forgot something, just click in this box again, and you can continue to do your editing. Maybe I wanted to center everything. Date, when is my summer fun going to take place? Choose from the calendar, Sunday the 29th, and what time is it going to be? Does it have a regular start time and an end time? Is it something like a brunch that you're going to be holding? So add a new seating time so they can choose between the first and the second seating. But notice I can't have an overlap. I can't have the second seating start at 12 o'clock. If you were letting people in half-hour intervals for something or 1 hour, this is what my recommendation is. So I'm just going to delete the second time, is set it to what your members are choosing for their start time. So now I've got half-hour intervals that it's starting. So you're going to have to indicate that in the description box that when you are selecting something that has a multiple time, that you're just choosing the start time. If it's a brunch, I'm not going to kick you out in half an hour because you're still probably ordering and chatting up with your friends. So if you do it this way, you just have to let them know they're just choosing the start time. We're not going to kick you out in 30 minutes. So I'm just going to get rid of that. What if it's an all-day activity? You can use all day. You can use no time as well. So then on the calendar, that's not going to show the time, or no end time like a New Year's Eve party. You have a start time, but you do not have an end time. So I'm going to use regular today, and let's say it's going to happen all afternoon, but you can also do a recurrence if you wanted to. So there's my recurrence box. If you check yes, you have your choices. Is it a daily conference that's going to happen every day for the next 3 days? So when does it end? After 3 times, or you can actually choose by a particular date. Weekly, maybe you have a fitness class that takes place on Sunday and it's going to be going on forever, or after 8 classes or a certain date. Monthly, 29th of the month, or the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or last Sunday of the month. Ends by, you set that, and yearly. So I'm not going to make this a recurring event, but those are possible options if you wanted to. I'm going to uncheck recurrence. Let's move on over to the right-hand side. Restrictions. Do you have like a wine and cheese event where you don't want any minors to sign up? So here maybe your club is 21. You don't want anybody younger than that showing up. Or it's the opposite. Maybe you don't want anybody over 25 to sign up for a particular event. Do you want to allow guests for this activity? Yes or no? Is it a female fitness class? Is that the gender restriction? Hide from calendar at a glance. So remember I had this piece here where I had that little box that shows things that are coming up on my Member Central page. Now this piece doesn't have to be on your Member Central. Maybe you have it on a different events page as well, but I happen to have it here. Do you want my summer fun event to show up in this box? If you don't care for it to show up there, then hide it from the calendar at a glance. If you choose to use our public calendar, please reach out to your coordinator to make sure we do have the public calendar set up, because then you're going to decide, do you want the general public to be aware of our summer fun event, yes or no? Because you don't have to display it to them. So I'm going to leave those unchecked. So everything we've done so far has taken place in what we call the general information tab. If you were doing this as an information only event, meaning you don't need them to register for this, you are done. If you actually want to see that register button so that your members can sign up, we have to move on to the registration and pricing tab. And then after that, it will enable the email notification tab for us to set that up as well. The save button's up at the top. The good news is if you go to this other tab, you do not lose everything you did in general information. It's still there. But for peace of mind, you don't want to lose the work. You can definitely hit save before you switch over. Now I have two other options. I've got copy and delete. If I ever wanted to make a duplicate version, because maybe you had something for men's fitness class versus female, and a lot of the information is the same, just the pricing. Instead of having to start all over, why not copy it and just replace the respective values? So let's go to registration and pricing, and you have a couple of choices. No registration, so that's going to be an info-only event. You have registration only, which is what we saw earlier with my social dining event. There is pricing only that I didn't show you yet, so let me show you that very quickly on Danny Lewis here. So for pricing only is actually my movie night. So what pricing only does is over here on the left-hand side, I have a more info tab. What this does is when you click on it, it tells your member the price for this activity in this dropdown. Honestly, most clubs don't like using the pricing only because they fear their members will not see more info and they'll miss out on the pricing information. Because in the end, it's just to inform them. We're not going to be charging anything on the website. So what I find clubs do instead is they would have just taken this information and typed it up in the middle somewhere to inform them about the prices if they wanted to. But that is a pricing only event. Or you can do registration and pricing. So you'll have that more info drop down. So I'd say 90% of the time, clubs like registration only. The next choice, once you've chosen registration, is the registration type. So if you remember earlier, I said there is two ways to do your booking. Quick is just a head count. You just need the name of one member, and they can bring as many people as you allow them to based on the capacity that we're going to set up down here. Detailed means you have to have a name for every single person that's coming, whether it's the spouse, the child, or a guest, you need to have a name. Or you can do a hybrid, which is what we have set up for my social dining. You give the capability for your members to do both. So let me just show you that part very quickly, so then we can create the rest. With Danny Lewis, we're going to go back into my social dining. And when you register, this is where you can see both set up. I have add a member, and other ways to add people's names is add a guest and add buddies and groups as well. And here is the unnamed, that quick registration part, where all I need to do is hit the plus signs to get the head count. Now, once I've hit my max capacity of 4, notice the plus signs are all grayed out and disappear because I've already hit my limit. So how does your member add somebody else when they hit add a member? They can type in their friend's name, Chris. So it autofills. So far I've typed in CHR. So anybody that has CHR in their first or last name shows up. And all I need to do is click on that person's name, and they can be added as a second, third, or fourth registrant into the booking. There is a name filter in the configuration area, which I don't cover, but in there, you're going to filter out any Chris's that were either deceased, inactive, or resigned, because you don't want their names to show up in the name search. And here's where you would choose the registrant category, or it will default to one thing if that's all that you had set up. So I'm just going to spend a few seconds really quickly to show you how to add people, and then I'm going to show you how to create the event because this kind of transitions us into this topic a little better. Add a guest is optional, remember? So for my summer fun event, you didn't want to add a guest, we can hide that button. So in here, what's going to happen is you're going to type in the first name, and they have to type in the first and last name. Otherwise, I can't add my friend Anne. So at this part, I go ahead and type the last name, but the email address, on the other hand, is optional. If I know my friend Anne likes getting email confirmations for things that they are signed up for, I can add their email. If not, I can leave it empty and she's still now added into the booking. And then I have what's called buddies and groups. If Danny Lewis always attends this weekly event with the same 3 other people or 2 other people, he doesn't have to spend time typing their names every week. So if I get rid of Mr. Anderson here, I can go to add buddies and groups, and there's 3 areas in here. Relatives would already be set up if your club uses member numbers for each person in the family. For example, 1, 2, 3 would have been Danny, 1, 2, 3, A and B respectively would have been Lisa or Eric. They would be billed together in your accounting system, so they would show up already as relatives. You have buddies that your member can set up as people they hang out any day of the week for any activity, or they have groups of people. Usually your groups would be 2 or more people. And all I have to do is click on the group name. And at that point, Brent and Mike are now added into my booking. That add buddies and groups button is actually something your members need to take a few minutes to set up on their own. And that is using this manage buddies and groups tab up at the very top. So I'll show you how to do that later. But once you set it up, it's a shared area actually. So if you have our courts or tea times module, you just set it up once and it's available for them to use it between the calendar and those areas as well. So that's what the quick and detailed booking would look like. Can you stop members from adding other members? I can't get rid of the add member button, but we can filter it so that 0 names will show up. Remember I said we can filter out deceased and resigned. So what we can do is filter all of them so they won't have the capability to add other members that way. But I can't get rid of the add member button, unfortunately. I mean, in that case, maybe a quick registration would be the better route for you so that they're just doing a head count. So what I can do is I can show you. So for example, my brunch is a quick registration. Today is what, the 12th. So let's do next week, the 15th. So if I do a quick registration, what you're going to be able to see is Danny Lewis is logged in already. You can see it's Danny Lewis. So all he has to do now is the head count. So that way, you're not going to be doing any names. You're just deciding, is it a member or is it a guest? Is it by the age group? On the left, you can see the multi-times. This is where they would have chosen a 10 o'clock start time or a 12 o'clock start time. So that might be a better route if you don't want them to add other members' names. Use quick registration. Let's come back over here before we continue in actually setting up your event. What is the difference between quick and detailed? Notice at the very bottom, if it's a quick registration, I only have the booking questions tab. If I do detailed, the individual questions tab pops open. And hybrid is what you saw in my weekly social dining. You can do both. I can do names or I can just hit the plus sign to quickly increase the number of people. So let's just go ahead and do a hybrid. And when do you want registration to start? I said the event takes place on the 29th, I think, right? Yeah, it takes place on the 29th. So it doesn't make sense to start registration on the 29th. You probably want people to register as soon as possible. So today's the 12th. At what time? When do you want to end registration? On the day of, or do you want to cut it off a day or 2 early? Usually you'll let it go up until the day of, but it all depends on the event. If it was a Halloween event, you probably don't want them to register today. So you can always set the registration date maybe as September 1st. So that's where you control when an event will start and end the registration process, when the button appears. Is there a fire safety code capacity for your event? Your room can only hold 50 people, for example. So make sure you put the capacity of what you're able to handle in that particular area. Is there a booking attendance limit? So remember, mine had a cap of 4. I didn't want bigger parties of 4 when one person was registering. If you don't have an upper limit, one family can bring like 20 people, then leave it as unlimited. But if you have something, then put the upper limit for one registrant. The min booking attendance can be left as unlimited unless you had like a tournament and they had to book in groups of 2, for example. Because if I only had one person's name and tried to save, it won't let them register. They have to have at least 2. So this will all depend on your event if you need to change these values. Booking questions, there are 2 sets of questions that you can ask. One is asked for the entire group. So apologize, I'm going to switch back to Danny Lewis so you guys can actually see this. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to continue. If your event does not have these extra questions tagged on, it would actually just say complete registration. But because I've added extra questions, I have a continue button at the top, and it also appears down at the bottom. If they have any special notes that they need to communicate with you, they can always type in this box. Maybe they needed a high chair. You can continue. So now these are the questions. You have 2 sets. The booking preferences, which is asked once for the entire party. So an example would be, where do you want to sit? They can choose between window and fireplace. Now I didn't make this question required. So if I didn't want to, I don't have to answer it. Otherwise, there would have been a little red asterisk after the question mark. You can ask up to 10 booking preference questions. Then you have personal preferences. So these will only show up if you're doing a detailed booking because you need a name. So anyone that I have a name for, I can ask individually the next question. And there's 2 types of questions you can set up in here. One is what we call a simple question, which is just a text box, and your member can indicate if their friends have any food allergies. But I'm not going to list all the allergies out there, but I don't have to type it in either. But you see, this one is required. They have to tell me their entree choice. So the other option is a multiple choice question that you can create using this system. So what they can do is choose the answer. Now, if I don't answer for Anne and Brent now, and you can see my notes carried over for the high chair and complete it, it won't let me. I made it a mandatory question. So I have to answer for Anne and Brent their food choices. And you decide the answers depending on the event, of course, what they are going to be ordering. So that is your visual for your booking questions. So let me show you how to create them. The booking question, you hit add a question. And then in here, you would type properly the question itself. And simple is the text box. Multiple choice is where they can choose one of many things as an answer. You can hit the add button here to do question 2. If you don't need question 2, you can hit the red X to remove it. So remember, this is asked once for the entire party. No, actually, this should have been multiple choice. So multiple choice is maybe you have booth seating, maybe you have a window seat. Then individual questions to add a question is food allergies. I'm just going to type allergies. I can't list them all, so I'm just going to have a simple text box. I'm going to add a second one, and then I had the entree choice. And then you can choose what you are offering on this event. Maybe you have hot dogs for the summer, and I want to make it required. 10 individual questions at max and 10 booking questions at max. On the right-hand side now is the registrant categories that we had set up earlier, remember? So here, are we doing it by age or are we doing it by member selected? When you come in here, by age, you can choose which ones you want. What if I didn't want infant in this one? Notice I can't uncheck it. It's because it's hiding underneath. You just have to click out of this drop-down box, and now you can remove infant. Notice beside adult, it says default. So what this is saying is as soon as you go to register, adult is already pre-selected. Once they hit the drop-down, they can choose between child and senior. If you want the one already pre-selected to be senior, you can hit set. So now senior would already be pre-selected when they go to register. If you wanted to remove them, just delete them, because maybe you wanted to do member selected. Maybe you don't have anything to choose from. When they register, they just register. So it makes it quicker for them because there's nothing to choose from. Maybe it's just general admission or something. So let's just keep it simple and have one thing. So you decide what you would call that particular registrant category when you set it up. For my summer fun event, do you want them to see the names of other people that are already signed up? That was the other attendees drop down on the left. If you don't want them to see for this particular event, uncheck it. Is it a popular event and you want to hold a wait list for this activity? Check it off. Do you want that add guest button so that your members can add a guest name when they are registering if you are using a detailed registration? Cancellation policy. Is there a policy that you want them to be aware of? If you do, then you can go ahead and choose from your existing list. If not, you can leave it as no policy. So I'm not going to use the one we created. I'll just use this 48-hour one just to demonstrate. So basically, the text will just appear in the booking. When your member registers, edits, or cancels from this booking, do you want them to be sent an email? It's actually just one box for all those three scenarios. So that's why notify member was checked. If it's like, no, don't send them emails at all, then you leave it unchecked. I can't say send it for new registrations, but do not send it for edits. Once it's on, it does it for all three scenarios: new, edit, and cancel. By default, the sender's email is actually set up in the configuration tab over here. Usually it's defaulted to something like events@yourclubname.com. But if this event you wanted the email to come from your food and beverage manager, you can check the box and override it with fnb@yourclub.com. If it's a golfing event, maybe you want to say golf@club.com. When it goes out, it comes from them. So that's optional if you want to change the sender email. Notify Club is saying every time somebody makes a new reservation, edits, or cancels, do you want a staff member's email to let them know every single time for those scenarios? Most clubs will say no, thank you, because that person's inbox will fill up very quickly, especially if it's a popular event. What I would recommend you do is possibly save your event, have people register, but say with 2 days before the event takes place to come in here and put in the staff member's email, because that way they will be aware of any last minute changes instead. That is how you would set up your notification area. Remember, you can jump between these three tabs without saving, but if you want to be safe, you can hit save. Last tab at the top, email notification. So what does the email look like when they get these confirmations? The top right is the email preview, and this Mystic River logo and the text at the bottom is actually defaulted in the configuration, because that way you don't have to put in your logo every single time and type in the event coordinator's contact information. When you email preview, in the top corner, the logo's there, and at the bottom you can see the footer information. What you cannot change is the stuff in the middle. New reservation all the way to booking notes will auto-populate based on your event. So here it would have said summer fun instead of father and son. The date, the time, who registered, confirmation, and whatever details are applicable when that member signed up. So you cannot edit anything in the middle, just the header at the top and the footer at the bottom. So for example, if you need a change, you just have to check the box for the header or footer. And now you can click into the box and it's the same editor we saw before. So maybe instead of this person, maybe I have an extension. I can go ahead and what did I say? FNB. You can add pictures, links, whatever you want in here. And now when I email the preview for this summer fun event, the email will have this new information added instead. So you can customize the confirmation emails. And then just make sure you save. You've created your event, but it doesn't show for your members to see quite yet, because in this system we have to do what's called a publish. I'm not actually going to publish from this screen because I want to show you from the Manage Events area. So I'm actually going to start at the very top because I didn't talk about this tab yet, is you have the ability to search for the following: upcoming, past, all, or deleted events. You can type in the name of your event to really narrow down your search. The date range will always start with today's date. And by default, I have my parameter set to always look 1 year out. So that's why if you see here, I'm showing one of 26 pages of events. In your configuration on the left, you can show it to be a little bit less, maybe showing only 1, 3, or 6 months. And you can always still go forward. So what if I chose August 30, what did I do earlier? I think 28th? No, 29th I did. But you see how as soon as I chose 28th, it is looking 1 year out from the 28th. Maybe I'm looking for a particular category. So I can narrow down, sorry, I've zoomed in. So there is my search button, and then I can reset my filters, or maybe I only show events that you can register for instead of information only and registration events. So to narrow it down, we can go ahead and type in summer, and there's my event. It has the event name, the date, the time. Did anybody register? No. Max people 50. The button is opposite. So the registration is opened, but I can always close it because maybe your boss asked you to stop registration, but you already published it. So you can always turn it off. I've got some icons here, the pencil up to the chain link. The legend is right on top. Edit event, add registration, your booking report, publish, hide, chain link, and if something is recurring. When it was last modified and by who. If you have multiple staff members, you'll be able to see who made the last change. So the first thing I want to show you is the pencil to edit. What if you forgot a picture or a hyperlink? You can always hit the pencil and it'll take you back into those 3 tabs where we built the event itself. So you can always go ahead and make your changes. Just going to close it out. The next thing is the arrow pointing up. So let me zoom in now. So right now it's saying the event is not published. As soon as I hit the green arrow pointing up, it will publish. And are you sure? Yes. Once you do that, it's now going to turn into the pink arrow pointing down. So now your boss says, wait, don't show it. We got to change the date, right? So you can quickly go ahead and unpublish or hide it, which I'm going to keep right now. Chain link is something I want you to be aware of that comes in handy. You can create a specific link for your summer fun event. So what this does is when you click on the chain link is you have a special URL. Maybe you want to have an email blast to advertise this summer fun event. So what you can do is send out your August email and hyperlink this URL. So what happens is as soon as your member opens the email and clicks on the link, first thing it's going to do is prompt them to log into the website if they haven't done so already, and it lands on the event. They're not going to be brought to the calendar grid and they have to find it and click on it. It just opens up with the picture of the event and the register button. Maybe you wanted to put this on your events page. So now on your events page, you can have a link. So other than just finding it on the calendar, you have a direct link for each event that you create. So that's what the chain link allows you to do. The live site button is up at the very top, and I make my way to the calendar. You should be able to see when I scroll down to 29, there's our summer fun event. You can click on it. Now, remember as an admin, you have different access. You can edit and manage. Your members would never see this. You can see more info. So there's that cancellation policy that I tacked on, and nobody's in the others attending. You can register on your member's behalf by clicking in here. The difference is you're never in the first registrant position. So you always have to add a member's name. But what's different is as an admin, you see member numbers when I type in Chris. Your members would never see the member numbers. You can actually find Chris by number because maybe you have regulars at the club and you know them by number. So you can also search and help people register by member number or name. Notice I just did general, so there's nothing for me to choose from. So that could be the case for you. You don't have multiple things to choose for the event. And then down here, because I made it hybrid, I've got my notes. I still have continue because I asked some questions. So in here, those are the same things we saw earlier, but because I made it required, I have to answer it. I can't be lazy. I can skip the other boxes And now I just completed a booking for a member, and I don't have to log in as an admin. You can assist with bookings. The check mark indicates the booking is completed, whether you do it or the member. On the left-hand side, it summarizes what they booked, the date, the time, the confirmation number, the attendees, and everything on the left. If you had turned on the email notifications, everybody in the booking that had a valid email address will now receive that confirmation email we saw earlier with my logo. Over here, there's some options that they can do actually on their own as well. They can cancel the booking, realizing they chose the wrong week. All they have to do is say yes to cancel or no to close. They don't have to call you. Although I'm in the admin account, but the member sees exactly the same way. I can hit email, not knowing that an automated email was on its way. Your member can hit the email button, and the details of the event are in the body of the message along with the subject line. So I can alter this and then type in my spouse email or any of my friends and send it off myself if I wanted to. So there's that little email option. View in my bookings. So there's multiple ways to view in my bookings. There's one, upon getting the check mark on registration completion. You got to go back to Danny Lewis, that way you can see it. Here, let me finish Danny Lewis really quickly as well. That way you'll get a better picture. So the My Bookings is the other way that they can view all the bookings coming up. Because what if they logged in, made a booking quickly, and then forgot an hour later, did I book this week or next week? They don't have to call you. All they have to do is click on the My Bookings at the top, or depending how your account's set up, maybe they click on their name and access My Bookings there as well. Then we have Sync My Bookings. What this does is some people like to keep track of their events in their personal calendar. So once they sync My Bookings, an email will be sent to the member in their inbox or junk box. They will follow the instructions and sync it to either their personal Outlook, their Google Calendar, or iCalendar, for example, and they can keep track of it that way. Update booking. What if I chose chicken, but I really wanted steak? I don't have to call you. Or maybe Anne here can't make it anymore. Your member can go in and make those changes on their own by hitting update booking. When they update booking, it's like when they're making the original booking. They can go ahead and change all of those things. So Anne can't make it. I'll delete her. Because remember, I'm Danny right now. I can go to the next page to change my food choice. Choose steak now. And remember, once I hit complete a second time around, everybody in the booking is going to get an email confirmation again. So this is the My Bookings. It will list chronologically all the events that they have coming up. So if I had something for 8 a.m. today, it would have shown up first. Whatever's coming up next is always on top. And then you have your edit and your cancel buttons right here as well. It only shows upcoming events though for your members in My Bookings. Once we hit Friday, this will disappear. If it was, say, 10 o'clock tonight, the edit and cancel buttons would have disappeared because I can't change anything in the past. And as you saw, administrators do not have My Bookings. What you do have instead is the back end, the Manage Events. So if I were to reload my browser, you can see that one registrant that we just did for, who did I choose? Chris, when we registered for the summer fun. So now you can click on the number 1 to see Chris. Maybe he didn't know he could change his entree choice himself. You could do it on their behalf by going to update, or maybe he needs to cancel. You can add another booking from here, or you can view reports. I'm actually going to view my weekly social dining instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this because there's more information for you to see. So you can see this is the one Danny Lewis just signed up for. So let's go in there. So here you can see all the different bookings. I can cancel an individual. I can cancel Joe, or I can cancel the entire booking. But what if you wanted a report? It's right up here. When you click on View Report, there's lots of information going on. You can decide which fields on the left here to be displayed. In the middle here are all the details of the event, the date, the time, even the questions we had set up. If you scroll on down, this here is all the fields. Did you want to indicate people that have canceled as well? Sorry, if you go back down. Sorry, I've zoomed in, so that's why it's a little harder to see. Let me zoom out. Okay, so now if you scroll across, you can see lots of information. Not only do you have their names, you can see if they're registered, you can see if they're canceled, and then you can see the notes. You can actually see their email and phone numbers are in here as well. And at the last columns are the answers to the questions. So if you export, a CSV file will be generated because maybe the person that's going to look at this detail, like your chef, you want to make sure you order the right amount of food, doesn't log into the website. So export it into a CSV file, and then you can send them all the information by cleaning up your columns, or you could have even cleaned up your columns up here. Maybe you didn't want all that info. You only wanted the answers to the questions, for example. So now your table below is a lot cleaner because your chef doesn't care for a lot of that information. There's another way to get to the report. Let's close out of here. It's just this paper icon. I could have went straight to the report. There's that recurring arrows going in a circle. So that means this happens every single week. One thing to note is if I try to edit something that is a recurrence, you have a choice. Are we making changes to this one event today or all the events? If you ever take a date out of a recurrence, you can't put it back into the group. So I'm going to do all events. And also, once you have registrants, you have a text up at the top here. If you want to change anything and you already have registrants, it won't let you. So there's certain things you can change. So if I wanted to change something in the text and the pictures, I can, but you see how the date, some of these other things are grayed out and I can't change them, okay? You have to delete the registrants first, and then you can make some of those other changes. And then you would add them back in. So probably pull your report, delete your registrants, make your changes, add everybody back in. So I just want to point that out. Once you have registrants, you probably have to delete them if you have to make certain changes to the event details. Is it normal that I do not have the paper icon in my event details? You might have the activity management events. So if you look on the left-hand side, you probably don't have categories, locations, or registrant categories either. You should have the reporting icon if you have all of those options. The other reason could be you created an information-only event. Only registration events will have the paper icon. The report is for people that are registered. So if it's not a registration event, that is why. So if you click on the pencil icon, let me just reset here. So you see my movie night doesn't have the paper icon because it was information only. So if you hit the pencil icon, so let me just do all events again, you'll see that in registration pricing, it's pricing only or no, you'll never have that paper icon. So that's probably why. I'm going on to the live site because remember the chain link I showed you for a particular event? So every single event's going to have it, but I have another tip that's really nice to know on the live site. So let's get out of here. Is at the very top, I have a generate link icon up here. So you see how my calendar is very busy? What we can do is we can filter it out. So let's do my swim classes, for example. If I do that, what if you had a swim page? You can now generate a link as a new URL and copy it. So now what happens is you can say on your swim page, click here to see all the swimming events. So it looks like you created a special swim calendar because that's all that's showing. So now when they click on the link, it's already filtered for them. It saves them the time from having to filter on their own. Now, I was in the month view when I just clicked on generate link. If you think your members would like the week view better, do this and now click generate link. Trust me, the URL is different. If you really narrow down and looked at the numbers and letters, it is slightly different. So now if you put this in an email blast or somewhere else on your website, as soon as they click on it, it takes them to the filtered week view of all your swim classes. And then you can do the same thing. Maybe you want it to just show all your dining. So now we just created a link for the week view of all my dining events. Your members can still always go to the filter and search for other activities. It's creating a separate calendar, but really it's one and the same. What I want to do right now is I want to show you on Danny Lewis the waitlist. So my waitlist event is Saturday, my winemaking class. If I go in here, I can see that there is already 5 people in here. For training purposes, I have a max 6. So that way I can tip it over. So what's going to happen here is Danny wants to sign up. He's going to come in here and indicate he wants to come with himself and someone else, so 2 people. As soon as I try to complete the booking, it says, sorry, we only have 1 spot left and you're bringing 2. What would you like to do? Remove 1 person so you come by yourself, or add yourself to the wait list. So he doesn't want to come on his own, so he's going to add to the wait list. The confirmation checkmark is a little different. It says you have been added to the wait list for this event. Doesn't say you're registered. He still has the same options. He can update, cancel, email, all of these things if he wanted to. And if you go into the My Bookings, it actually has waitlist in brackets. Now, what if somebody called a staff and wanted to go to that same event? So what's going to happen is, see how it doesn't show? It's because remember I have calendar filtered for dining activities. So if you ever find that things are missing, or if you just create an event and you keep looking at your calendar, it doesn't show up, a tip here is to make sure you change it back to all categories, or better yet, reset all your filters, because maybe you were filtering a room and it doesn't show up. So that's why my winemaking class was missing. But there it is. And let me go to the month view. Notice the button? It doesn't say register anymore. It now says add to waitlist. So anybody that now goes to the calendar as a member, or even the staff, you're going to tell them, oh, by the way, it's full. Do you want me to put you on the wait list? So you're always going to have to add somebody. And at this point, let's just choose Betty, and you can go ahead and add them in. So what does it look like? How do you fulfill the wait list is the question. Go to the back end of the website. I can say wine. There's my winemaking class. There's 5 people registered. I can have a capacity of 6 and have 3 people in the wait list. The button is going to tell you what to do. It's telling you it's closed. Do you want to open the registration? Anytime you have people in the wait list column, you do not want to open it up. Because what that means is if a single person wants to go to the winemaking class, they would have sneaked in before the people on the wait list. So never hit open registration until you have everybody cleared out of the wait list. If it's full, like this one next week, it's 6 and 6, it just says wait list. This registration is open, but you can always close it. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on the 3 people in the wait list, and who gets in first? You get to decide. To be fair, it should be the booking number. 82 was the first person, then 85. It's sequential. So Danny was on there first, but if you wanted to, you can technically go ahead and add Betty because Betty was the manager's best friend or something. So you can decide. To be fair, it's first person on the list, but if you were to add Danny with the blue add to booking button, it's going to tell you, sorry, you're booking 2 people, but I only have 1 spot left. Is it okay for you to book them and increase it to 7? To be fair, you can probably call the instructor and say, can I have 1 more person? They're probably like, sure, why not? But if it's for fire safety reasons, you don't want to keep going over and over what you're allowed for that. So please pay attention before you add people. If it was Betty, it would have put her into the event. You add and hit OK. See, it's bumped up to the 7. It is already full. Remember, all you need to do to create the waitlist was that extra checkbox when you're setting it up and making sure waitlists in the registration field was selected. The last 2 things that I wanted to show you is the manage buddies and groups. Each person has to do this on their own if they wanted to save time. They can create as many individuals they want because they hang out for different things, or they have as many groups as they want. So groups would have 2 people at the minimum, but you can have as many people as you want, as long as it fulfills any upper capacity for something you're allowing to book. Because if you allow someone to book only 3 people for something, then this Thursday group won't show up. Because remember, Danny is already the first person. So that means he's trying to fulfill 4 people, but you only allow 3. So this Thursday group would never show up. So they can add a member, and they can also add a guest. And to create a group is super easy. All they have to do is put in the name. So I'll just use today's date again. There's our group. And then you add the member or the guest. So if I wanted Chris, I can add him. Chris Anderson has no idea that Danny just created an August 12th group. If I want to add a guest, all I have to do is put in the first name and last name. There's only one field this time. That's why Anne's name's in red. And it tells you, please put the first name space last name. And then now she's added in. If I chose the wrong person, I can hit the X. I can rename the group in the top right, or I can use the left arrow to go back to see all my buddies and my groups. If I don't like a group, I can always go ahead and hover and delete my July 14th group. Go back out to the Help tab. There is videos for your members on how to use this online calendar, how to search and use those filters, how to make the registration itself, manage their buddies and groups on a desktop or mobile device, and even the My Booking. So there we have, or should be able to, do all of these things. So yeah, I didn't go through this, but these are all the topics that we had covered. We're managing our events. We did the admin view. I did the wait list. I showed you the public, how to manage your videos. The main thing is, if you're logged in as an admin, the first thing you want to do to manage your events is click on your name and switch to Club Central. When you do that, you're looking for this calendar icon, event management. If you don't have it, it's on the top left planet icon, open application list and modules, and that's how you can start going in and start creating your events. Make sure the very first time you start off with your categories, locations, and registering categories. You always want to start off with those, otherwise you don't have the necessary fields to create your very first event. You don't have to create them all at once, so if any of these ideas apply to you, feel free to jot them down, but you can always just add them as you go along. I thank everybody for their time in joining me today. Hopefully this was informative to help you in creating and managing your events on the online calendar going forward. And I hope everybody has a great day.